Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I played this last time.
I must have
Hey, that's all right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Future Tech and Silicon Scoop. I hope everyone's having a great day. I hope my coffee has cooled down enough. How you doing today, John? How you, we were talking about flooding earlier today, and I am not flooded. Fingers crossed. How are you doing?
Good. No flooding, thank God. But you know, it's been crazy. With all the flooding, the power outages, all that sort of stuff. And I just realized, so X, just as an update, made a change. I now need a premium account to create a live broadcast on their platform.
Oh,
so I cannot live broadcast on X anymore.
I got a little thing on that as well. So I assume I'm not broadcasting there as well. Interesting.
Oh, well,
interesting indeed.
I don't care anymore.
I may get a premium account only because I use it a lot for promoting the events and stuff.
Yeah, you do.
And it will, right now I'm getting, obviously down to the bottom of the list. And when you pay, they actually promote your prompts more and stuff. So
yeah, I'm sick of this pay to play bull crap. So,
well, I mean, they all want you to sign on for all sorts of reasons, right? Like Elon Musk wants to be your bank, right?
Yeah.
And that was his whole thing when he bought X or Twitter. Twitter is going to be the X and turn it into what he wanted PayPal to be. PayPal.
Yeah, he owned PayPal. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I was talking to somebody about the eBay founder before, so I easily could have got confused. So yeah, he wanted to turn into everything app where you do everything in it. You make payments, you do this, you have money, you put, you can receive money in Twitter. You could, if your posts do well, if you're a paid person, you actually get paid for that on Twitter now. I don't know if you know that.
No.
So it's interesting stuff. So we do go ahead.
No, I just said just interesting. I just we'll see where that goes, because he keeps getting greedier and greedier, and we'll hopefully another platform comes out that that is just as good.
Well, I'm always a fan of more competition, unless they're my competition.
Competition's good for everyone.
Absolutely, but you don't necessarily think of that when you're when they jump out at you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Welcome back to Future Tech, everyone. I just want to jump into this, and we're going to talk about the Supreme Court EV mandate decision. I'm not going to bring up an article. I just want to talk about it. We talked last week about the Chevron deference / Chevron doctrine, and how you mentioned that there were some people saying it's going to have a huge impact. And I was explaining, well, what it does is it stops organizations like from the EPA from creating laws and implementing them, because that's is the domain of Congress to make laws, and then the other people can implement them. So it affects things like the ATF, who have made some laws and they're enforcing them. Things like the EPA, who have made laws and enforce them. And this specifically one affects the EPA, where they said, based on that, we're turning over the Chevron doctrine. You cannot make this EV mandate that you've made. I think it was by 2030, everything had to be 100% EVs, and by 2025 or whatever it was, especially in California, and some states have different rules. And so that's been overturned. So the federal oversight in oil and gas industries face uncertain post the Chevron deference, because they have stuff on them as well. Critics anticipate challenges to vehicle emission rules under the new legal landscape. So the problem is those emission laws were put in, emission laws were put in by the EPA. And now there's no defense for them. So now we're in this gray area where the EPA is not allowed to make up these laws, and people are enforcing them. So there's going to have to be some changes in Congress. A lot of these laws will probably have to go back to Congress and get redecided on and all that kind of stuff to see if they're if they'll be reinstated. Small automotive business benefit from an increased regulatory clarity, and reduced federal overreach, so they can buy more of this and that, and we get to see more potential engines. Like our concern around the EV mandate is, well, we don't think EV is the long-term solution, and we also think that if 100% of our people drove EVs right now, the economy would be devastated. Our power wouldn't run. We'd be because our power grid couldn't handle it. So like hydrogen, and we were talking about this new water engine, though there's the stuff on the water engine I'm skeptical on, because I didn't see any links to research papers. It didn't mention anybody, so I have to do some more research on that to see if it actually exists. But so a lot of things are going to have to be challenged now because of this. So overturning of the Chevron doctrine is expected to impact several industries beyond oil and gas. Like I said, I mentioned the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Manufacturing industries rely on EPA regulations for emissions and environmental compliance. Agriculture sectors facing potential shifts in regulatory oversight and environmental standards. Transportation industries, including logistics, freight, affected by emission standards and fuel efficiency regulations. Real estate and construction sectors, changes to climate and building codes, land use regulations, those type of things. So this is pretty wide reaching. Go ahead.
Doesn't it mean that that emissions and things are just going to be more lax now? It seems like, because now they got rid of the EV mandate, which was supposed to help the environment. Like, doesn't it seem like the next step that they're going to do is relax the emission standards, emissions compliance, and things like that?
Well, they might need to relax those emission compliance just based on some of these auto manufacturers cheating and lying and whatever to do it. But that aside, what it does is we're now in this gray area where they're still enforcing those rules. People are still abiding by them, but we don't know when, the first challenges are going to start happening. But what has to happen is the proposals have to go back to Congress to say, all right, these are the laws for the environmental laws related to carbon combustion engines and EVs and whatnot. Let's take a look at them, which ones you want to endorse, and then we can enforce them. That's all that matters, is that as a non-governmental agency, or a governmental agency that's not like Congress, I can't make laws. I can enforce laws. So those things have to go back to Congress. So right now, yes, there's potential people are saying it's going to be this and it's going to be that. I think the EV mandate should change personally.
Yes,
because
I agree.
I think we should be going towards emission standards, like you were suggesting. I guess it just depends on who is in control of Congress at the time when they're making these decisions on these rules and laws, as to how aggressive or not they'll be, because we've seen that hydrogen and several other solutions are coming along that'll be a more long-term sustainable than EVs.
Yeah, and just I sent you a link there. It's a meme. I don't know if the meme is accurate, but just to kind of drill my point home about EVs not being environmentally friendly, this meme says it has a picture of this huge digger, whatever it is. It's a Cat 994H, and it's saying it burns 1,800 gallons of fuel in a 12-hour shift. And this machine is required to move 500,000 pounds of earth in order to get the minerals needed for one single Tesla battery.
Yeah, it says, goes on to say, in whose world does this type of math and new Green Deal make sense? I have it up on the screen here.
Obviously, the minerals are used in other things too, but when we've got other potential fuels, and not just hydrogen, there's other potential fuels like ammonia that you like as well.
Potentially.
Potentially. So the Chevron doctrine, I like. So one positive thing that's come out of it is the EV mandate, which I think is a great move. My concern with the Chevron doctrine is like I brought up, are they going to reduce other regulations that are going to have a bigger environmental impact as well. Like
what it means, I think, is what it all they're gonna. Oh, am I on mute?
No, sorry.
All right, I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think I have. What it means, I think, is all those laws are going to change. Whether they become more strict, less strict, more updated, but Congress is going to have to get busy to start making those laws. And I think, long term, to me, it makes sense. It makes sense that the right people are making the laws that the administrators can enforce, rather than administrators making laws randomly and enforcing them, which may or may not apply. I've heard horror stories about companies being fined $10,000 plus for no reason, that based on rules that administrators have made up, and they're just pocketing the money and whatnot. So you have to really take a look at right now. It's going to be a short-term impact. But hopefully long-term, we'll just get to a better place from a more enforceable law set that is more defensible in court, and probably more clarity.
Let's hope that this has positive outcomes. We can always hope, right?
Absolutely. That's my plan. I like to look on the bright side of life.
Yeah, it's hard to these days, but we'll try.
Just like Monty Python.
Oh my God.
Always look on the bright. So let's jump into this next one.
Yeah.
Elon Musk plans to colonize. Elon Musk Mars colonization plan. Elon Musk plans to put 1 million people on Mars in the next 20 years. What do you think about that?
So it's ambitious. To establish a human colony on Mars. We don't even have a human colony on the moon. Which is even closer. But yeah, it seems like his company, SpaceX, they're really pushing. They're researching full-scale city designs, including potential building materials for habitats and spacesuits to withstand the harsh Martian climate. They're even investigating if humans can reproduce in the low-gravity environment. And this is sorry, I got to bring this up because Elon Musk reportedly volunteered his own sperm to jumpstart the civilization, which I thought was funny. So yeah, they're looking to transport 1 million people to Mars. 20 years, I think, improbable. But hey, Elon Musk has really stepped up, and although I'm not a huge fan of some of the things in his approach to things, but hey, he's gotten stuff done right in the past. So if anyone can get that 20-year timeline done, I would say it would be him.
Yeah. Have they successfully landed a rocket back on Earth yet?
Yeah, they did once, I think. Once or twice.
Because this is where my hesitation goes. It's like, okay, you're going to get to Mars in the next 20 years with people. Never mind, you're going to get to Mars in the next 20 years with people and build a place where they can live and have 1 million people there. I'm saying I'm doubting.
Yeah.
Hitting X for doubt. But
I'm even skeptical of having like more than 1,000 people on Mars in the next 20 years.
Yeah, I think it's probably going to take us 10 years, if not more, just to get people there.
I think so. Well, we have a team that's going to go there.
And when are they going to go there?
Remember NASA did that thing years ago? Yeah. So we've got a team of like 7 or 8 people. I don't know where they're at with that.
Yeah, that's that's all I'm saying. So
yeah. They've been quiet. So I'm guessing that no good news has come of that program.
Now, Mars is so inhospitable. Do we even have the technology to live there?
I don't know. What was that movie, The Martian? Do we?
Yeah. I read the book. I didn't watch the movie.
I think we do. Like, we've got technology to pull moisture from the air to make water. We've got technology to convert hydrogen or to convert whatever in the air to usable fuel. I don't think we have the technology for long-term habitats. 2030.
Yeah. 2030 in the 2030s proposed for 2030s is the first crewed Mars mission, which includes sending astronauts to Mars, orbiting and returning to Earth.
So that could be 10 years from now, right? And so he's saying 20 years from now he's going to have 1 million people. No way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I like the concept because it'd be interesting to see, can we really expand like we've seen in movies and whatnot? Can we start to colonize what's out there? Like, if
Yeah.
we can get a few million people on Mars, what's next?
Yeah.
Are we going to put people on the moon for the fun of it, or is that not a good thing?
Well, I like putting people on the moon. Have you ever seen the show? Oh, what was it called? It's an Apple TV Plus show. It's about if Russia beat the US to colonizing Mars, or to the first to get to get to the moon first, for all mankind. And they follow that story, and they actually go all the way to the moon being actually colonized, and then Mars being colonized. It's actually a really, really amazing TV show concept that they've come up with. It kind of outlines the challenges, but doesn't really dive into it. But yeah, so I don't know if I think the moon should be our first stop because it's closer. It has a harsh environment, obviously. It doesn't have any environment, actually. It's a good start, and then go to Mars. But hey, they want to jump down and go right to Mars. All the more to them.
They probably have a reason. I'm just not sure what it is. While Musk said in 2016 that it would take 40 to 100 years to have self-sustaining civilization on the planet, Musk told SpaceX employees in early April this year that he now expects 1 million people to be living there in about 20 years.
So maybe he knows something we don't.
Maybe he knows something we don't. We got to do it while civilization is so strong. There's a high urgency to making life multi-planetary.
It's interesting. It's interesting that within the last 10 years, he's changed his tune drastically. Like from 40 to 100 years to 20 years, and increasing that number, right? So
yeah, and he's saying here that his rocket that they're building might carry 100 passengers at a time to Mars. Which,
yeah, so
this
100 passengers divided by 1 million. How many rockets is that?
10,000.
10,000? No, 100,000. No. Anyway,
I think it's 10,000.
It's a lot of rockets.
Yeah.
I think so. The biggest thing I think that would help to solidify his point or his goals here is if we find water on Mars. There's potential, but I don't think we've actually found any yet. We found remnants of it.
But we don't need to find that. Like, let's face it. We've talked about machines that pull water from air.
Yeah.
And one machine can create 16 liters a day. Now, we just don't know if it'll work on Mars.
Yeah, exactly.
The
thing is if we do have water there already, then that's a huge hurdle eliminated. That's less equipment that has to be brought. There's a whole bunch of different things, right? Less equipment that has to be relied upon, right, to live. But
I'm just trying to see if there's how much is it going to cost. What is building a colony on Mars going to cost?
Millions.
Yeah, I'm just seeing here if saving humanity. Mr. Musk has been fascinated by Mars since reading Isaac Asimov's 1951 fiction novel Foundation when he was 10. It was a great set of books. I didn't really like the Apple TV series. A galaxy to save humanity from the fall of the interstellar empire.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think trillions is right, and it'd be curious as to. He said the trip to Mars, located about 140 million miles from Earth, would take up to 9 months.
Yeah, and that travel alone is taxing, right? So
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, again, I don't know what the ship would look like, but you're 9 months in there. How much room do you have to move around?
Yeah. And we're nowhere close to having any kind of ships that are like anything related to any of the movies that we have, like as far as artificial gravity, I don't think, and things like that. But
So they say they found ice on Mars potentially because they're talking to harvesting ice to make water and selecting the right areas on Mars to build colonies. So I'd have to take a look if they have discovered ice potentially.
Yeah, I've heard potential, so that's all I've heard. But maybe I missed something. Yeah.
By last year, the latest versions of Starship has been built at Starbase, a SpaceX facility in Boca, Texas. In June, Starship successfully returned from a test flight to space to space for the first time. There you go. I was
Wow.
asking about first flight. So he's dropped hints about colony planning. We're probably going to have to pay to get there.
Absolutely.
I'm just wondering, who's going to trade the quality of life in the next little while for this.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see. And speaking of rockets and all that sort of stuff, there was there's an article that I have to add here for us to talk about. That a start actually no, I did add it. A startup doing to get to space, just using balloons.
Cool. I'd love to take a look at that.
Yeah, just something spacey. Just as a caveat. But yeah, it's going to be really expensive. There's got to be. I'm curious what his motivation is to up the timeline. That's what my curiosity is. Is there some sort of mineral on Mars that we don't know about?
My guess, honestly, is he's upping the timeline to fundraise.
Yeah.
To go out and raise money. Hey, we're gonna do this in 20 years. So he's pumping it so he can get a lot of investment, and then it's just gonna take longer.
Yeah.
It heats up when like the return on investment's 100 years. Like, oh, I don't know. Oh, we're gonna do this in 20 years. Oh, okay. I'll throw a few billion in.
Yeah.
So they're talking about large dome, giant dome for communal living with smaller domes scattered around it. Discussions lately focused on what material for the domes. So these got whole teams working on this.
Yeah.
Concerns with making sure the city looks cool.
Who cares if it looks cool? I guess if it looks cool, it'll entice more people. But yeah.
Said colony would be self-sustaining in case something happened to Earth. And Mr. Musk plans to use Starship as a sort of Noah's Ark, carrying plants and animals on the initial voyage. 3 people familiar with the plan said residents would then build greenhouses on Mars to grow food.
Kind of like, The Martian, yeah.
So I think, maybe he's trying to save humanity.
Well, we should focus on saving Earth.
I agree, but maybe he thinks there's going to be a nuclear war or something, and
maybe he knows. Again, like I said, maybe he knows something we don't. He's one of the richest men in the world, and I'm sure he's well connected.
So in the Boca complex is called Stargate. They've got people working on this all full time, whole teams and teams. So this is going to be interesting to watch. Yeah, I want to stay on top of this. I think it's unlikely that it's going to happen within 20 years. But I think it's more likely 100.
I think in 20 years, we'll have a few people for sure.
How long does it take them to build a building downtown?
But what if they had a 3D? Well, they can't because it needs to be sealed and all that sort of stuff. So yeah.
So now they got to build a building. Though it's a dome, it might be easier because they have module or whatever.
Yeah.
But now you've got all these other constraints about building it in the oxygen-free environment and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. I just think it'll take a lot longer, as you do, obviously. Yeah. And with the 9 months travel back and forth, it's 18 months minimum round trip for these ships. How many ships are going to be going? Doing the math on that, it's going to take 10,000 ships, like we said earlier. That's going to take a while.
Yeah.
Plus supply runs, you would assume, in addition to ships. So you'd have to have several ships on the go at a time, and maybe 10, and then 1,000 of those runs. That's going to take a while.
And they take 9 months each, right? So
that one way. So 18,000 trips.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no way this is happening unless they're building some sort of mass
Unless,
transport in
you know, one
space.
of those engines that we covered, unless he's got some new technology that
Yeah.
that's further along than we know about.
In recent goodbye email viewed on the Times, a female SpaceX manager worked on Mars program described brutal hours and conditions, especially for working parents. But she also said the company was an astonishing place and that she would not trade this experience for anything.
Yeah, that's what I hear is that yeah, he demands a lot, but he also is willing to put his mouth, like to put up his time. Like I know when there was problems at Tesla, he set up a tent or something and was helping to with the production. So good on him for that, but he demands a lot from his employees. One for sure.
Yeah. So he wants to secure civilization.
Yeah.
For sure in 30, civilization secured. So he wants to secure civilization in 30 years.
Yeah.
Noble goal.
Noble goal.
If it's, to secure civilization.
Yeah.
And we need dreamers and people like Elon Musk to move stuff forward.
We do. We absolutely do. Yeah.
Any last words on this?
No, but if you haven't checked it out, you should watch For All Mankind.
All right, I will definitely put it on my list.
I guarantee you'll like it. Yeah.
All right, let's jump on to this next one.
Yeah.
We were talking last week about OpenAI and the board seats for Microsoft and another company that was pulled, and saying I didn't really understand the structure, and that now you show up with this OpenAI revenue report. What's going on with the revenue?
Yeah, so just a caveat. So this is an estimated breakdown from a startup company called Future Search based on data that they've gathered. So there's an AI startup and they've estimated OpenAI's revenue based on public data like user numbers for ChatGPT Plus and job listings. And they've projected 3.4 billion in annual ARR, annual recurring revenue for OpenAI currently. And the thing is they gathered facts from sales call notes, executive interviews, and more. But it excluded misleading data that was circulating online, which is key. But the analysis models revenue by estimating user growth rates for ChatGPT tiers and API usage. And the revenue breakdown estimates 52% from consumer ChatGPT subscriptions, which is huge. 38% from enterprise licenses, and only 10% from API usage, which is interesting because you would think that there would be more from that. But I don't know what their structure is for the API usage. So it's really interesting to see. It also, in the report, it outlined OpenAI's future plans, which is emphasizing continued investment in R&D to advance AI's capabilities further, obviously, because almost every month it seems like one's beating the other. They got to come out with a new one, or every few months. So it does underscore the transformative potential of like this report does underscore the transformative potential of AI and OpenAI as a leading player. But again, really interesting report.
Interesting. This is based on Sam Altman projecting 3.4 billion annual recurring revenue.
Yeah.
And is he projecting that in 2024?
I think 3.4 billion in revenue as of June 2024.
Okay. So what are their costs?
I don't know if I didn't see that they had analyzed costs in there. Obviously server costs are huge. This was just talking about their revenue, not their ARR, not their net revenue, I guess. So I don't know. Let me just go back to my notes and see. Yeah, so there is incomplete data, obviously, because this isn't from a report. This is from pulling data and doing an analysis, which is really cool, though. So they used AI to put this together. But yeah, there's data points that are missing. There's uncertainty in management. And then they talked about subscriber growth, market penetration, strategic partnerships, but they didn't really talk about their costs, I don't think.
Yeah, obviously. I'm always curious. They got a revenue 3.4 billion annual recurring revenue is pretty darn good. I think a lot of AI companies would love that. With it, with a majority of that coming from ChatGPT Plus subscriptions, which I pay for, one of them.
Yeah.
And I'm loving the use of this tool, though I'm seeing some good stuff from Claude, and I'm seeing some good stuff from a few other tools that I'm like, okay, maybe I want to try those things.
Claude is still my favorite by far. You got to give it a chance for specifically for what you use it for. You got Claude 3.5 is phenomenal. And it's free.
And 3.5 is free to a limited extent. It looks good. But some of the stuff I want to use, if you look at, like, they've got a really good prompt generator. I don't know if you've seen that, but if you want to generate really good prompts so that you can create your own GPTs, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
They've got great tools for that. They've got now projects where you can feed it a whole bunch of documentation and it can read it all. And then as a result of that, it acts based on the knowledge of those documents.
Yeah.
And it can read and write to documents as well. So it can do a lot of things, which I'm really interesting, especially from an automation point of view.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's like and it looks like they're going more towards focusing on generative AI as opposed to just like AI output kind of thing, which is really cool. Which is great. It's a great evolution, right?
So, do we think that OpenAI is still in a great place to continue based on their deals with Apple and whatnot, or do we think that there's too many challengers to the throne that they're going to be overthrown and be third or fourth tier in not too long?
That's a good question. I honestly, I'm not a big fan of ChatGPT. I'm not a huge fan of the output when I compare it with Claude. I haven't messed around with Mistral, and we've never talked about Mistral, but Mistral is another one that's pretty good. And I think next week we'll be talking about Apple's new one, which is apparently phenomenal. And even Meta, apparently, they're coming out. Their next one is OpenAI actually leaked some benchmarks on Meta's new one that's coming out. And so it apparently beats all of them. So I've never messed around with Meta's LLM, but it'll be interesting to see the progression of how these companies progress in the future, as far as, do they focus on a specific area, or do they just continue to be general? Do they try just to beat each other out every time? It's going to be interesting to see what this battle is, but it's great. This battle is great for end users, because they're always trying to one up each other, and that's always a good thing for end users, right?
Yeah, competition is always good for the end user, anyway. I'm curious of where they're going to go. We see all these other products hop up, and I think we've got automation tool sessions and workshops and webinars and stuff coming up in September. I think we should do either on here or in there face off between Claude and ChatGPT, if you want, with the same prompts and the same, and just see what happens.
Let's do it. I love it. Yeah.
So, do we think they're making money? It's great that they say this is awesome, but are they actually profitable?
It all depends, because I think there was an article that was talking about the cost that was happening per second for OpenAI at one point, but this was when they were when it was ChatGPT 2 or something. And I can't remember what that cost was, and I can't find it right now, but I'm sure that cost has skyrocketed. And the other thing too is they're not just using like chips that you and I can buy. They're using chips that cost like $100,000 per chip, or $60,000 per chip, right?
Yeah.
For this stuff. So they've got a unique hardware architecture. So I'm curious to know what those hardware and server costs actually are. But we'll never know because they're not going to release that. They're a private company, right?
Yeah, and I'd be curious
Unless
to
they
see.
want to.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see where they're going, and you know, well, I mean, I don't know. This is the problem. They're half private and half not. That's why
Yeah.
I'm half for profit and half not for profit in some way. So I'm curious to see if they're making money. I'm curious to see how well Sam's foray into trying to raise money and get his hardware off the ground.
Yeah.
That'll be interesting to see if that goes anywhere, and if that will be an open AI project or something else, because I think that would be a natural progression to keep either this company or that company in the lead as people try and leapfrog each other.
Yeah. And on a side note, I was just reading an article. Sam Altman, something happened with this house that he bought for $27 million. And apparently he bought a lemon house, quote unquote. So just funny.
All right. So 8:36.
I'm fine. However you want to proceed. Like,
well, there's one I want to do. I just don't have the thing for it here. So I'm going to pop it up. And then because the time is running out, I'm going to get rid of
oh
this.
yeah, this is crazy.
All right. So this is crazy. Disney hacked. The group claims to have a trove of data, and the company's investigating. There's a couple. There's another article somewhere on this too, I think. Marvel Studios plans revealed as Disney allegedly faced a 1.1 terabyte hack, which includes intel on future movies. This has a huge impact on Disney in so many ways. Like, they are right now under so many lawsuits around their hiring and firing practices, around the Florida stuff, you know, the Reedy Creek deal that's now null and void, and they're rejigging stuff, around lawsuits that are happening, like the lawsuit we talked about last week where somebody died in the park and they can't sue because they're trial Disney Plus
subscriber.
subscription. Yeah. So all of that, like, it's from internal Slack channels and a couple other places. So, you know, it might not, you know, if you don't get the emails, you're not going to get the true grit, I think. But the curious becomes is those people who have, like Gina Carano and several other people who have been fired, does this now strengthen their case as this information starts to come out?
This is crazy. This is interesting. Again, this is just another hack of another big company. And weren't they just hacked, or was it Marvel that was hacked?
It's the same company,
Marvel. No, I know, but like, obviously Marvel Studios is a subsidiary, or like, but was it Disney that was hacked just like a year ago or 2 years ago, and the whole MCU plan was released?
It could be. I don't particularly remember that. Sony gets hacked all the time. So,
maybe it was Sony. Yeah, I can't remember. Anyways, yeah. So, it's not surprising. These companies are not putting cybersecurity they're not making cybersecurity a priority, and this just underlines the lack of, like, the reality of it, right? They've got 11 terabytes of sensitive data, which includes confidential information about future Marvel movies, internal communications, unreleased movie scripts, and other critical data. And they did prove that they have it by releasing a couple documents, right? So it's not BS.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what is this like? So Disney's facing all sorts of lawsuits. Bob Iger barely hang on the last the board control when they revoted the board, and their stock price keeps going down, and then stuff like this happens. You know, they're desperately trying to find their new audience because they've lost their way with ever since, you know, Endgame, I was going to say, in Marvel Universe. Indiana Jones was a flop. Everything they've done with Star Wars is a flop. Almost everything has been a flop, and they can't quite they need to figure out the storytelling stuff again. And they're like,
Yeah.
Inside Out 2 was good, and it looks like
Yeah.
Wolverine and Deadpool's gonna do well.
Yeah.
But those are small blips where you see things like Snow White that cost almost 400 million with the reshoots. There's no way it's going to make any money. It's impossible. And same thing with the Captain America 4.
Yeah.
So
I think what they did was they spread themselves too thin. They tried to do too much too quickly. But at the same time, like, I could see why they would make that decision at the time. Like, Marvel's popular, everything's popular. Why not, right? But I think they went too far.
Yeah, we have a formula. It's working. Let's just duplicate it, and anybody can do this formula. And it turns out, no, anybody can't.
Don't get me wrong. I love Kevin Feige. Like, he's great.
I question that now. I used to.
Yeah.
I just don't like. I don't know. I don't know who made the movies great before. Like, when we sit back and say, all right, who made this stuff? I read The Rise and Fall of the MCU book.
Okay.
And it was interesting. And they talked a lot about there was a committee at Marvel. I think Nelson Peltz was in charge of that. And I can't remember the name of it because I read it a while ago. I'm going to call it the lore or committee, the continuity committee or whatever. So everyone at Marvel hated working with them because when scripts would come back, they said, nope, that's not how the powers work. That's not how this works. That's not how they look. They were the people who said, no, we're sticking to the comic book lore and stuff.
Oh, I like that.
But they were a pain in the ass to work with. Everybody hated them. And like in the book, it was celebrated when they got rid of them. And that was after somewhere around Endgame time frame. And, Nelson Peltz was gone, and, here we go. So now they got everybody doing their own thing, which again is great, but you need somebody to rein you in, especially when all these writers, directors are hiring people to say, we deliberately go out our way and hire people who don't know the source materials, never read or watched the stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to sit back and say, okay, well, if you have a fan base of a certain number of people, and that's why you bought this IP, don't you want to appeal to that fan base? Don't you want to continue on in that universe and carry those on? If you want to bring in new audiences, great, but don't you want to at least keep the audience you have? So wouldn't it do your due diligence and research the properties so you can, respect? But it just doesn't seem to happen. And then they don't do good storytelling. They don't develop the characters. They don't, there's so many things they don't do. And you're right. I think it's because they have too many projects. They've probably got 10 good writers total. No offense to your writers in Hollywood that can actually bring all this stuff together and write a good, coherent script that people can follow. And, they've got them spread across 50 projects.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, they've got them spread too thin. And going back to making sure how the accuracy and things like that, like, there's a fine line between accuracy to the comics and what is going to look good on screen, how to get new people to get involved. So if you're too accurate, like, for example, Spawn, I think, is a great example of where they were too accurate with the comics and people just weren't interested.
Yes.
Maybe I could be wrong. I thought it was a great movie though, but I'm a geek, so.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I didn't sit down and I was younger. I didn't sit down with a critical eye and say, does this movie hold up? Do these scenes make sense? Does dialogue make sense? A lot of time I'm watching a movie, I'm completely taken out when the character makes a completely different decision than everything we know about the character up to this point. Like, this makes no sense.
Yeah.
And that throws you off. Like, as an example, in the last Ant-Man movie.
Yeah.
If you watched it, the first 10 minutes of it, they're all making him, fun of Scott Lang, the whole family, about, his daughter goes to jail and he's trying to teach her a lesson that's not supposed to jail. And his wife and his grandfather, his father-in-law gang up on him. And I'm like, this makes zero sense.
Yeah.
When
I don't think I got through that whole movie, actually.
No, I shut it off after that scene. Like, None of this is making any sense. We've had several movies with these characters in it. We know their personality. Like they lost their mother, a wife for 30 plus years into this thing. They're nothing more important than the daughter mother relationship, and they're going to tear it apart for this. It makes zero sense. Like, did you not understand these characters when you decided to write them? Obviously not. You're just rewriting them. It's like, oh, you're taking us out. Like, we have these established characters. Why don't you just, move them along a little bit?
Yeah,
you can poke fun of them how you want, but this is just like, oh, these are characters are acting nothing like.
And I think that if based on what I know about the movie, I think potentially that scene was kind of a last afterthought, because all they wanted to do was introduce, what is it,
Cassie.
What's that?
Kang?
The guy, Jonathan Majors, the artist. Yeah, they just wanted to introduce him to bring him into the MCU, from what I hear. And so I think everything else was an afterthought.
Man, and like hot take on this, and I know we're going over, but he was the worst.
Yeah,
did you watch him? Like he's probably a great stage actor, but if you watched any of the scenes he was in, he wasn't talking to the people he was talking to.
Yeah.
Like you watch
what I liked him in though, that Lovecraft.
Yeah, I didn't see it, and I imagine he was great. In this, whatever reason, nobody told them like, hey, stop that. Because what he's doing is in everything, in Loki and whatever, he's not talking. I'm having you ask me a question.
Yeah.
I immediately look away from you and walk away and talk to nothing. Like you watch every scene. He's like, well, let me tell you. When he walks, it's like talking to an audience somewhere. Like every conversation. This is ridiculous. It's just crazy. Anyway, this is going to mean bad things for Disney financially, for the future of all this stuff. If they fired or turned down people or whatnot, and that gets leaked based on a bunch of these things, they're in trouble. I'm curious to see where this is going to go.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see where this will go. Because is Disney going to pay? Like, are they even asking Disney to pay so that they don't release it? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
So let's jump into. I want to jump into one more here, and
is it the one I'm thinking of?
I want to do this one.
Okay.
Is that the one you're thinking of?
No, I was thinking of the XR Pro glasses, but let's do that next one because
we'll do that next time.
Yeah.
The hydrogen-powered air taxi, and I'll call it up in a minute because I think something's happened here. So, hydrogen-powered air taxis take flight. What's going on with this?
Yeah, so this company called Joby, I think I'm pronouncing that right, Joby Aviation, they've hit a major milestone on the road to launching their all-electric air taxi service. Keep in mind, it says all-electric, but it's using hydrogen fuel. So last week, they completed an impressive 523-mile flight on a single charge of hydrogen fuel cells and batteries. And so we'll dive into a little bit about why this matters. So Joby's air taxi uses 5 tilting rotors for vertical takeoff and forward flight. It's designed to carry 4 passengers and a pilot up to 200 miles per hour. And it has a maximum range of over 300 miles. And they've recently gained FAA certification, which is really good. And how it's powered is it uses hydrogen fuel cells to power electric motors. The fuel cells are 10 times more energy dense than batteries. And so it allows for a longer range than a battery-only aircraft. And the cool thing, as we all know, hydrogen produced from renewable energy is emissions-free. So it's a record-breaking flight. They flew for 2.5 hours nonstop, which was more than 500 miles. And which is 3 times further than any prior eVTOL test. I don't even know how to say that. eVTOL? I don't know. So really cool. They've got a competitive edge because other taxis are limited to under 100-mile flights. This allows direct city-to-city hops without recharging. So it doesn't have to be within the city. And it avoids need for excess vertiports and battery swapping and all that sort of stuff because it's hydrogen fuel cell powered, right? So their plan is to get certification for air taxi service by 2025. And they partner with Toyota, which I think Toyota is the one with the ammonia engine as well. So it's interesting to see. Yeah.
Sorry, the link we were using is not there anymore. So I'm wondering if there's an issue overall with this particular product, but I found another one. So we can put it up on screen there. How does this aircraft compare to traditional helicopters, planes, in terms of size, capacity, capabilities?
Yeah, well, it's smaller and lighter than most conventional helicopters. It's got room, like I said, for 4 passengers and a pilot. A traditional helicopter can often lift 6 to 8 people. The thing with the aircraft is it's powered only by electric motors running on hydrogen fuel cell and batteries. So there's no jet turbine, there's no piston engine, which makes it simpler and quieter with 0 emissions. There's advanced software as well and stabilization systems, which replace the need for a co-pilot and make it orientable for vertiport gate to destination. The other thing too is it doesn't have a rear rotor, so there's less, I think, there's less of a chance that there's critical failures for this, because with a helicopter you have your rear rotor that if that thing fails, your helicopter's spinning out of control. So it seems like this one might be a little bit more reliable.
So when do you think people will be able to start taking flights on a regular basis?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So they're aiming, obviously, I said they're aiming to achieve certification in 2025. But the thing is there's no network for this yet. So they're going to need to build out a full network of ports, vertiports, we'll call them, in the target cities. I'm guessing New York might be one, maybe not. That infrastructure rollout might take 1 to 2 years beyond the certification. But again, what's the cost going to be? But as I was doing some research, some analysis predicts it might take up to 2030 for air taxis to really take hold for everyday travel, which isn't that far away. Like, we're talking 6 years, right? So realistically, mass market, we're looking maybe 2030s, same time that they're planning to launch the mission to Mars.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
I work with hover drones, and they pivot a lot, but they do a lot of drone work in the Toronto area and stuff.
Who's the guy at Hover Drones?
Cameron Rowe.
Cameron Rowe. Shout out to Cameron Rowe.
And we've talked a lot about delivery service and what kind of space you would need to be able to deliver stuff to homes or apartment buildings or a festival. What do you need to, like, a vertiport to take off and land, say, in a city like Toronto?
Well, here's the thing. They can use existing helipads, apparently, as long as there's sufficient clearance for the rotors, which have around a 35 to 40 foot diameter. The vertiports will probably need to have charging equipment on site, like hydrogen refueling or electrical recharging, just because they're going to need some redundancies, because in case, they're running low. They're going to need the ability to access aircraft on both sides for loading and maintenance, space for aircraft maneuvering on the ground. So the vehicles, they don't need long runways. They just need room to taxi kind of thing. So they're going to need adequate lighting and marking, obviously, and communications capabilities. I'm guessing they could probably just integrate current aviation avionics into these. So that shouldn't be too big of a challenge.
So this aircraft landed with 10% of its hydrogen load remaining at the 523 test.
Wow.
Miles.
Okay, so they could have gone longer.
I guess so. I guess they're just, being safe.
I'd be safe too with that, for sure.
So this range is great, but how does hydrogen fuel compare to jet fuel in terms of cost?
Yeah. That's a good question.
I assume from an environmental impact that we're near zero with the hydrogen.
So hydrogen produced from renewable energy costs around, from what I read, $5 to $7 per kilogram. Jet fuel is around $3 to $4 per gallon. So hydrogen is competitive, or based on the math, if I'm doing it quickly, it's slightly more expensive right now, but costs are projected to decline. But there's so much more benefits, right? You've got emissions, sustainability, that just come with using hydrogen over jet fuel. cleaner, all that sort of stuff, right? But yeah, it's slightly more expensive, but I don't know if we take into account the range that you get, if it's the same cost, but it'll be interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look, do a little work on the numbers there. I like that this is potentially going to increase the hydrogen infrastructure, because
Yes.
that's always, to me, the limiting factor for us to progress. This says the company, Joby, plans to start commercial operations in 2025 using the battery electric air taxi. So with the other one shortly behind, I'm not sure when it'll be behind.
Yeah.
So interesting. Obviously you're going to need some sort of special pilot's license, and rules are going to have to be applied. Did they say what countries they're focused on first?
No, it doesn't say that. But yeah, there's going to be new training required, new certification, all that sort of stuff, emergency procedures, medical requirements, recurrent training, test flying. Like obviously fundamental aviation skills will transfer over, but operating these will require specialized training, in-depth specialized training. But I'm not sure where they're going to focus on next. I'm guessing the US, because the FAA gave them clearance. I'm guessing that's going to be, but who knows?
It'll have to be in a city, and they'll have to apply, I guess, and just like
Yeah,
Uber did and whatnot, or the self-driving cars.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Interesting. And just on a side note, this is why I use an ad blocker when I do this. I forgot to turn it on. You see all those blinking ads and stuff on the side?
yeah.
I turn it off when I'm doing it, so everyone gets the ads. But when I'm doing this, it's just so distracting. It
It
takes
is very distracting.
Anyway, this is amazing. I'm looking forward to
Yeah,
following this hydrogen taxis and see what kind of competition is out there, because if they're doing it, they're not the only ones.
yeah,
And it's always good to see the other competition going, and what we'll be able to do in Toronto. Like if you can take from Burlington to Toronto, from St. Catharines to
yeah,
Toronto, and all of a sudden this becomes a very interesting option if you can do it for a couple
yeah.
$100.
Well, the thing to take into account too is we're talking straight lines, right? So they have further range. Like if you're flying straight from Toronto to Ottawa, you might be able to even do that, because if you take into a straight line kind of thing. So
Absolutely. I just don't know the difference between that and a plane, between Toronto and Ottawa. And, if you're downtown to downtown, all that kind of stuff, it might be better. But I was thinking more along the lines of
okay, yeah, yeah, that makes sense.
commuters and stuff, right? Where we're
Yeah,
saying, all
yeah,
right, I need to get home, or
yeah,
I'm within 100 miles or so of my workplace, and now I can take one of these to get there.
yeah. Or even going somewhere downtown Toronto because of traffic, right? If you're wanting to go 5 kilometers in Toronto, takes you 2 hours to drive. It'll take you very little to fly.
So, we have one comment here. Dinner Bell says, yeah, I'll stick to walking and biking. Don't blame you. Don't blame you at all.
Oh, biking in Toronto? No, thank you. I do not trust drivers. I'm scared to bike. But good on you if you are.
Well, the secret to biking in Toronto is, one, to know Toronto,
Yeah,
and two, to break the rules. And I don't mean that in the what you see the couriers downtown. If you're in the downtown core riding, like in the 4 blocks,
yeah,
that is like insane. You're got a problem. So that area is, uh, difficult, and you probably shouldn't be riding in that area
yeah,
because it's packed all the time and someone's going to hit you.
yeah,
Outside of that area, there's all sorts of ways. Know the streets, ride the side streets, go the wrong way down one-way streets because nobody's on them. And once you know that around Toronto, it's not too bad. I used to
yeah.
live in Toronto, ride my bike everywhere, and it was great. But and I agree with Dinner Bells here. I am going to stick to walking and riding my bike.
I do like walking. I do like that. There was actually an article that tested whether or not it was faster to walk or even take the streetcar. I can't remember. I think the outcome was it was faster to walk at that point.
Well, I can tell you it's faster to bike ride than any of those things.
Yeah.
Because in Toronto, I several times I was meeting people, and we'd have to go around to different locations because we're scouting locations or whatever, and I'd be on my bike, and either You know, someone would be public transit and someone would be driving, and so
Yeah.
and I'd always be waiting people 20 minutes at the next place, always.
Yeah.
Waiting for everybody because it's just so much faster. It is. So what do you got going on, John?
Absolutely nothing. Not till Futurist, I don't think.
Yeah, we've got the Futures After Party on August 14th. Go to torontostarts.com or startupdrinksto.com for that. You help people or startups or businesses get government funding. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Reach out to me on LinkedIn if you're a startup, if you're developing tech, if whatever. If you there's tons of grants out there. I can help you sift through it, help come up with strategies. Most of the time, my job is telling you bad news, that there's really nothing out there, because there is a huge disconnect between what a startup is and what the government thinks a startup is. But yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions.
And we're running over time, so thanks for everyone for coming. Check out torontostarts.com or startupdrinksto.com
Thank you
for all the stuff going on, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you.